Hello and good morning, good afternoon. Maybe it's a good evening, wherever you may be. This is Kay on the Weekday, and I'm your host. We are coming at you live from Arizona. It's another hot one today. Hasn't quite hit noon yet. Our temperature's already getting up there. It's going to be another hot one. But that's all right, because we're trying to stay cool indoors, trying to stay away from the heat on this hot spring day in Arizona. So how is everyone doing? Welcome to the show. If you're new around here, I'd like to welcome you. Welcome to the podcast. Here on K on the Weekday, we talk all things baseball. And today, our topic is going to be the disappearance of the bunt. Now, those who watch baseball are probably familiar with this now forgotten art that we no longer see in baseball. And I will be the first one to tell you, it is a little frustrating. I'm not going to lie. It's sad and also frustrating. Now, when I was growing up, and I don't want to try and sound like everything was better when I was growing up. I feel like that's a common statement for everyone to say. Once they get older, they always think that things were better when they grew up. However, I swear, I used to see more bunts, especially in key situations. Now, I remember that in the late innings when it was a close ball game, a guy got on base with 0 outs. It was almost a surefire thing that if you didn't have one of your power hitters up, if it wasn't the cleanup or number 5 guy, you were bunting. And that was just a fact. Now, I don't know what happened, where we led ourselves astray, but I noticed as I got older that even games where teams were down by a run, in the late innings, the 7th and 8th innings, if they got a guy on with nobody out, a bunt was becoming less and less likely. And I began to ponder that. Why is that? Why aren't we seeing bunts like we used to? And this not only goes for sacrifice bunts, but drag bunts as well. Bunting for a base hit. All the things that I used to enjoy so much about baseball when I was growing up. Things that we did when we were in Little League and we were growing up and even into college. Why don't we see that as much as we used to? Now, I don't particularly think there's been a decline in speed. I think there's teams that have plenty of speed. I really do. I think there's teams that could really benefit from this. There's plenty of teams out there that have great speed from the 1 and 2 and the number 9 guys. Why don't we see this drag bunt more often? Now, what confuses me the most is not only not seeing those drag bunts from the speedy guys, but not seeing a sacrifice bunt from those same speedy guys in the 1, 2, and 9 holes when it's late in the game, when there's nobody out, and when there's a runner on first, let alone a runner on second in some cases. Now, I am only a baseball fan, and I don't pretend to know what's going on in the analytics room and what's going on in the manager's head. Now, I played baseball for a long time, so I do understand the game, and I watch it throughout the season, almost every single day, I catch a baseball game. Now, nothing has been more confusing, and in some cases frustrating to me, than when my team is down by a run. I can think of numerous occasions where it was, 2-1, 3-2, 1-0. Late in the game, you're fighting off a pitcher the whole game. You finally squeeze a base runner on. And one of our quicker guys comes up. Or maybe a guy that's not necessarily hitting for the highest average at the time. And I've been dumbfounded by the lack of bunts. And there's nothing more frustrating. There's nothing more of a momentum killer when the lead guy gets on. The lead guy slaps a base hit, maybe draws a walk, works a count, has a great at-bat, and then the guy, second or third pitch, hits a pop-up, infield fly, easy fly ball, lazy fly ball, can't corner to the outfield, or even the dreaded double play. Strikeouts are quite a blow as well. And we see those a lot these days, especially. Now, I've talked to many people on this, and the consensus from the other side is, hey, why not take a chance with our analytics? Why not at least follow, a certain percentage, even if that percentage is super, super small? Why not listen to that small percentage that you could still get a hit rather than giving it up and out? Basically saying 100% this is going to be an out. Thinking about it in two options. Like, okay, let's follow the analytics. Let's tell the guy what pitch to look for in terms of like the data and like where this pitcher's tendencies are. Let's tell, we can inform our hitters that, okay, here are the pitcher's tendencies. I mean, it's just like a scouting report, right? We can take those percentages and we can say, okay, this guy, 65% of the time he's throwing a fastball in the outside corner for a first pitch strike. I want you to look for that pitch. Let's say it's a right-handed hitter. I want you to look for that pitch and slap it the other way. And even if that hitter only has a 12% chance of getting the job done in that scenario or actually producing that result, I think a lot of people would rather have that than a surefire out. But I don't know if I can get behind that. And let me tell you why. I think we've overlooked how important it is to have runners in scoring position. And I know that sounds like a simple statement, but what I've noticed is hitting with runners in scoring position is nothing like it used to be. Now, I know in this era of launch angle and in big contact, people are always looking for the long ball or the extra base hit. And rarely do we see that small ball tactic anymore. And I think this has bled through into bunting. I think that oftentimes we think we would rather take that chance of a long ball and a ball in the gap than moving station to station. But I think something that we don't factor in enough is we don't factor in the mentality and the mental aspect of this game. From being a pitcher, I can tell you that there's nothing more stressful than a runner standing on second base with less than 2 outs and the game on the line. I think that we've picked stats over because we can't quantify that mental state and that pressure. We can't quantify that. I think we've almost cut it out entirely. And I think that we underestimate how impactful pressure situations can be on the opposing team. So we've come to this impasse, right? We've come to this impasse where instead of playing small ball, instead of, let's say a guy gets on, right? He hits a little single, whatever. He gets on somehow. Maybe he draws a walk, like I was saying before. Draws a walk, works a good count. I think we then don't take into account, don't take into account the fact that immediately when we have a runner on first base, there's an added pressure on the pitcher. Now we can increase this pressure even by giving up an out. That's the thing. And I think that's something that people can't get over. I think people can't get over giving up an out, because giving up an out is basically saying that we are committing to 100% of an out in this scenario. 100%, really, we are committing, or we are giving ourselves up 100% of the time by doing a sacrifice bunt. And I think that worries people. And I think that worries the new era of baseball and analytics. I think that sometimes we get too wrapped up in that, and we don't realize that baseball is more of a mental game than we often give it credit for. Now, I really want to hear not only casual fans, but people who've played the game as well. I'd love to hear the two different perspectives. Fans and even if you're new to the game, baseball is quite this universal game, and I just want to hear from every aspect, from every background, what people think of the sacrifice bunt and why has it gone away. Now, that's my theory. I think the theory is that we have become so caught up in data analytics and sabermetrics that we don't want to give up an out. And I think that fear of giving up an out has propelled us so far in the other direction that I think we're stuck. I think we're stuck a little bit right now. Because let's be honest, coming from a lifelong baseball fan, myself being a lifelong fan, there is nothing more satisfying. At least when I was growing up, when my team was down 2-1 in the ninth inning and we squeaked out a single off the closer, then I almost knew that a bunt was coming. And let me tell you why we don't think about bunting enough. Because yes, we are giving up a for sure out, but we are also moving a base runner for sure. So let me explain that in one more way. Yes, there's a 100% chance, nearly, that the fielding team, the team in the field, is going to get an out at first base. There's a 100% chance that we are going to give ourselves up. We are going to give up an out. But there is also a 100% chance that we are going to get a runner into scoring position. And I think that oftentimes we overlook that fact. We overlook that idea. But I also think that hitting an offense in general with runners in scoring position has just become a different game. Now, I have seen games where hitting with runners in scoring position, a team, could be 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position. However, they could win the game by 5 or 6 runs because we're relying on long ball and big boppers and hits in the gap, RBI men. Where it doesn't matter if you're on second base because you're scoring from first, or if it's a home run, right? It doesn't matter at all. You're walking home. Now, it makes sense, right? Because now we've created this cycle. We've created this cycle with this increase in sabermetrics and data, which, by the way, I think is great. I think the fact that we've combined math and baseball is brilliant. It's awesome, because I think that why not? I mean, why not use the resources that we have, as long as it's within the morality and legality of the game. I mean, I'm for improving our team based on mathematics. That's great. However, I do think that we can't quantify baseball mentality and the mental game of baseball. And I think it's important that we think about that. Now, to get back to my original point, where have all the bunts gone? I swear, I truly cannot remember, and this is God honest, I can't remember the last bunt I saw in a live baseball game. I mean, that's how sparse it's gotten. Now, apart from a lot of National League games where oftentimes you'll see a pitcher bunt with the runner on, in American League games, or even when it's not a pitcher in a National League game, I can't recall the last time I saw a bunt, and that's not good. Many people would argue it's fine, but I think the bunt is great for baseball because I think it's strategy, and I believe in strategy. I think baseball is such an intensely strategic game. It pains me to see that we've taken out that part of strategy. And I get that it's another kind of strategy, right? I get that it's sabermetrics, and I get that it's another kind of strategy. But such an integral part of the game, such as bunting, to see it go has been sad, has been disappointing, to say the least. Now, I still believe that it will come back. However, as I talked about in my last podcast, I don't think it's going to come back quite as quick as all around the field or contact hitters being able to splash the ball to all sides of the field. I don't think it's going to come back that quick, because I think the idea of giving up and out is so ingrained in statisticians' mindsets now that it's hard to beat. It's hard to beat that mindset. It's hard to overcome that, or to present a viable alternative. But man, do I miss the bunts. I really do. I really miss that feeling of hope when your team's down and you get a guy on base. You fight, you scrap to get that one runner on base in the ninth inning, and then that with one out, there's going to be a runner in scoring position. That's what I think we don't think about enough. Now, watching baseball these days can feel very different because a runner will get on. You don't feel like you're that much closer because you know that you need two solid at-bats, essentially. Not that a bunt signifies a lack of a solid at-bat, because it takes an incredible amount of skill to lay down a good bunt. So it's quite the opposite. It is quite a skillful at-bat. But I feel like we need, in today's game, you need two extra steps in order to get the run, two extra difficult steps. Not only working a good at-bat to get a runner on, but working another good at-bat. And I feel like bunting is a skill. Again, not to say that bunting is by any means any easier, because I don't necessarily think it is. However, I think when that strategy is nailed down, I think it does present a more surefire way to get that runner second. However, it's hard to argue. It's hard to argue if we're looking into sabermetrics. However, like I said, something we can't quantify is baseball's mental game. We can't quantify it. And I think that's important to understand. I think in the modern game, I think we can come back to bunts, and I think they can serve a purpose. I really do. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with the DH, if that's going to be in both leagues, because everyone talks about that, and I don't know. I fear that if it does, I don't necessarily have a strong opinion on either. But if it does, I fear the bunts time in baseball is going to be dwindled even more if we add a DH to both leagues. Now, I say I don't have an opinion. I see reasons for both sides, and probably in a later podcast, I'm going to look into both sides of that argument. But I do fear for the bunt. I have hope, but I fear for the bunt. I fear that the bunt's time in baseball or the frequency of bunting may fall even further in the coming years. However, I still think there's a place for it. Most definitely. The sacrifice bunt is an integral part of our game, and I do not want to see it go. I am fearful for its disappearance. Not to mention the drag bunt. Now, I think the drag bunt can make a comeback much quicker than the sacrifice bunt. I really think that's like comparing apples and oranges, right? It's a similar technique. It's a similar, positioning, sort of, in the sense of fundamentals and how you're doing it. Of course, it's kind of performed, very differently from one another. But especially with the shift, this is something that I want to see more of. And I'm confused generally why we don't see it more. But I think we will. I think the drag bunt's going to come back a lot quicker than the sacrifice bunt. And this is something I want to continue to talk about in another one of my podcasts. But something that confuses me, and again, in a lot of ways frustrates me, is you have the third baseman playing at shortstop, and the second baseman's in right field. The shortstop's, behind second base, and the first baseman's playing back. Why in the world are we not dropping down a bunt to third? I mean, that to me, again, it could be a sabermetrics issue, but that to me, or it could be the fact that guys are practicing for the long ball more than they're practicing for on-base percentage. And maybe that's the ultimate conundrum, right? Are we valuing home runs more or on-base percentage? And, I think we kind of know the answer, right? I think we're valuing home runs more and slugging percentage. But why are we not? But why? Well, I'm sure it comes down to sabermetrics, right? And data. The fact that the probability of a long ball working, right? The outcome of a long ball is so much worth more. The payoff is so much better than using on-base percentage, right? So the risk that you pay for the payoff of a long ball or balls in the gap is more important than is more impactful than the payoff for on-base percentage, even if it does become a higher percentage, granted you use these certain techniques like a drag bunt or contact to all fields. Now, I think that one's going to be for another podcast, the whole idea of drag bunts. But it's something that confuses me. It's something that I wish I saw more as an avid baseball fan. I see this huge gap on the third baseline, and I'm wondering, why in the world are we not taking advantage of that? Why in the world are we not taking advantage of that third baseline? I mean, it's wide open. It's essentially begging us to get on base. That third baseline, it's a free pass almost. I mean, it's about as good as a walk. I mean, it's a tough one to see. And the drag bunt is a mystery in its own right, and a mystery that needs to be solved. The disappearance of the drag bunt, because I feel like more than ever today, the drag bunt should be one of the most used techniques in baseball. And it's one that I surely hope we see a return of, because I think it's incredibly useful, especially with teams with immense speed at the top and the bottom of their order. Now, I'm going to wrap it up for today because I want to save drag bunting. I want to save drag bunting for a future podcast because I think there's a lot we could say about that. But really today, I wanted to focus on the sacrifice bunt and its absence from modern day baseball. Give me a comment or type down in the comments. Let me know. Ask me a question about sacrifice bunting. Give me your thoughts. Give me your thoughts on the disappearance of sacrifice bunting. And if you think it's going to come back, I want to hear your thoughts. That's going to do it for our show today. This has been Kay on the Weekday. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace out.